This is Crypto Core Radio, discussing the ideas, people, and projects building the new digital economy. Get the latest on blockchain technology and cryptocurrency updates with your host, Lutz.
Hello and welcome to Crypto Core Radio. This is your host, Lutz, coming to you live from New York City. And we have today Bitcoin Benny from the Bronx. And he is, don't laugh. And he is another project. We've interviewed in the last few days, chain makers and Chainzilla. And this is the third, I believe the last one. I think there is only three. RedFOX, who is also a chain creation service, and they also have a DEX coming out, if I'm correct. I have Bitcoin Benny. Welcome, Bitcoin.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, you're right. So I'm also the GM of Komodo. So I'm the GM of Komodo in parallel, and RedFOX is actually a venture builder. So it's actually what we do is we build out companies on top of the Komodo technology and also help to incubate the projects in the ecosystem.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes.
What's I'm not big on titles. What's GM stand for?
General Manager. That's the.
Okay.
We don't have a CEO
I was thinking
role.
General Motors.
No, we don't have a CEO role in Komodo based on the fact that it's a decentralized, it's a consensus-driven organization, and they're not big on titles, but we all sort of look after different sectors of the business. So some of us look after business, others would look after marketing, others look after tech. So it's divided into your normal streams.
I used to work for Komodo. I was on the marketing team.
Yeah, I saw that like 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, it was quite a while ago.
Yeah, well, so you'd probably understand. I mean, Komodo's always been considered to be right up there with the best tech and the most innovative tech. But the one thing they've always been criticised for is getting the name out there more, and they don't have the same type of marketing and advertising budgets that a lot of these big projects like Tron and EOS have. But on the same token, they don't have the same revenue stream. So why would you spend heaps of money on marketing something that you're never going to get back?
Right, and I think the one of the basics, is education. Educating is marketing for me.
Yep.
Anything, if you're not educating, even when you put up a banner on a website and you just put Komodo, the decentralized platform, yada yada, right? You're not doing anything. You gotta try to educate. You gotta teach somebody something in 3 words, and or a sentence in less than a sentence. If you could do it in the smallest amount of size possible, you're doing it. That person's going to walk away knowing something, and then they're going to think, oh, that's Komodo. That's that decentralized platform that's separated from all the other platforms, because all their tokens are not tokens. They're actually separated chains.
Correct.
So if Komodo died one day, all those tokens will still be alive. Those chains, they're the same thing. Tokens, chains.
For sure.
So
I think it's an important point. You're right, and I think that like I've spent the last 2 years educating people on Komodo from the end user perspective. I don't come from a deep technical background. I come from a deep business background. So for me, it's been about this is what it can do. This is what you can use it for. And the one thing that we noticed is a lot of people were saying, what product have you got, or show me how it can be used, or show me how I can integrate it into my business. And Komodo is like a fantastic, wonderful, spirited organization, and it's when I say organization, it's a project. It's not an organization as such.
I think that my biggest my biggest difficulty back then was the fact that they made a name for every gear on the platform, if you know what I mean. Like every mechanism had a name. Yep. And it's hard to learn for an average person. And you could ask Poly Crypto Blog. Me and him were on the same side, and everybody else was changing names all over the place.
Yeah, I get it. But the way I've grown to see it, like your point is 100% spot on. The way I've grown to see it is I see that as like one thing is the nut, one thing is a bolt, one thing is a screw. And the way I explain it to people is Komodo is like 40 parts on a table, and people are saying, what is that? And you're saying, that's a watch. and you're explaining what each of the parts are called. But what I need as an end user is I need a face and a band on it, and then I go, that's something that I use every day, and wow, it's better than what I use.
Yeah, and just tell me what that watch does, right? That's it.
Exactly. So that's exactly why RedFOX came about. We turned around and said, we don't want to disrupt anything that Komodo's doing, but you think of Komodo as Linux, as an open source platform, and what it needs is a red hat, hence RedFOX, to come along and say, we get the tech, we understand those parts, let's put watch faces and bands on it, let's build companies out so that people are using the tech. But the way we wanted to do it, which was our big differentiator, is we're saying to use the products that RedFOX and the companies that RedFOX makes, you won't even know you're using blockchain. So you can still be paying in fiat, you can still be, it can replace services. So we replicate unicorn companies. So for example, let's say we copied Uber, because that's famous in the States. You'd get in your car, you'd pay your cash to the driver, you get out of the car, but what would happen is we'd have cheaper transaction processes, we'd have better recording of data, we'd have no manipulation of data and rides, we'd have a much better system backed by blockchain without the end user ever knowing that they're using the technology. And we figured that's the fastest way to adoption.
All right, and this is RedFOX. So what's the website so people can follow along?
RedFoxLabs.io.
And so that sounded like a great, brief description of RedFOX. So I thought it was just a chain building, a chain building service, but it seems like we're a lot more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're what they call a venture builder or a startup studio. So what we do is we don't try and reinvent wheels. We take successful unicorn models and we've got a 9-point system. So for example, we have to grow to 25 million in revenue over the course of the first 4 years. We have to be third to fifth to market. There's a whole lot of exceptions and rules that we have to meet before we choose something. And we only stick in the internet economy in 4 sectors. So we only look at e-commerce, e-media, e-travel, and ride-hailing, transport, logistics. That's all we look at. We look at massively successful businesses, we replicate and copy those, and then we put blockchain behind it.
If I was a client of yours and I'd come to you, what would I be asking you for?
That's a very good question. So technically speaking, you wouldn't be a client of ours in general terms. We do offer consulting and help, and we do those types of services, but how we do it, we come up with the idea, we build the core structure and the go-to-market. We find people that are experienced in that industry to run the company. We give them 20% of the equity, and RedFOX keeps 80% of the equity. And then we hand over that company to those people, and then we basically help advise them and continue to help them raise money for their ongoing purpose. So we build in, out. So we go build from in to out model, not a taking outside businesses and then helping them from within. We do that from the consulting perspective to help people integrate Komodo into their business. So, for example, an existing chain might say we're stuck, the technology doesn't work properly. So we can say, okay, we can come in and help integrate Komodo in there because we can solve those problems for you. But our core business is us building out companies that function on Komodo in the background.
All right. So say I'm a failing blockchain, which I've seen recently, a lot of migrations going on. What is the trade-off when when moving? Let's say I'm some green coin, right? And I'm moving over to the Komodo blockchain, and I'm getting those great features of the blockchain. Is there a trade-off? Like, am I losing something when I bring an X16R algorithm to an equity?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question, and I'll try and talk about it in very simplistic terms. Sometimes they could lose some of the network effect, or they could lose some of the community aspect. I mean, a lot of people choose to go on Ethereum because it's popular and because everybody knows what Ethereum does, but then these projects say, well, I'm stuck. I can't expand. I can't scale. I've got all sorts of problems. And I know that Ethereum, for example, are working hard to resolve those. I'm not speaking poorly of them. I'm just saying it might not suit what the company started out to do. They may not be able to finish due to the technical limitation. So they might say, I want to come across. What we've worked out is that some of them say, I don't want to come across. But you've got an end-to-end framework that is completely interoperable, and I could actually build dApps and things on Komodo's or using Komodo's technology that I can integrate into my existing chain. this is something that sort of hasn't really been tapped into. And we just signed a partnership with Electra yesterday. They're a classic example of a platform that's been around for a few years, got a rather large community, never did an IEO, never did an ICO, never did a raise. And fair launch. And they're in the same type of a situation of, we've got some great tech, we're building out some great stuff. They're quite exciting considering that they've been able to keep ploughing through bear markets and relying on community. At some stage, those companies turn around, or those projects turn around and say, we need to generate revenue, we need to make income so we can market and advertise and get better listings and build better products. So this is a perfect opportunity for RedFOX to come in and say, we'll help you do that. We'll help you build your models. We'll help you just define revenue streams, and we can integrate Komodo's tech onto your existing platform without you having to move.
And when you say you're going to build models, are you talking about software? Can you build software applications on the Komodo?
Yeah, we can. We can build software applications that can integrate into the Komodo technology. We'd have a look at each of those projects, for example, if we're using that same analogy, and say, what have you got? And they might say, we're a payment platform. And we'd say, okay, do you realise that if you had X, Y, and Z function, you could actually open up a whole new market in Southeast Asia because of the way you've set up or because of what you offer? And they'd say, it hadn't even occurred to us. So what we'd say is, we'll help you be able to do that. We'll help you integrate some of Komodo's technology onto your platform, which unlocks that door. And then how a project like RedFOX would work is, we'd say, it doesn't cost you anything to do that. And we'll do some sort of a revenue share or equity split on anything that you come up with, and build through our consulting and our negotiations. So this whole space is full of bad actors, and I think that Komodo's been really, really good at attracting the projects that are serious on tech and seriously wanting to do something and wanting to innovate and integrate. So what we've decided is, we should be actually not going out and saying we're going to be like these rip-off merchants that charge $1 billion to deliver something that doesn't work. What we'd rather do is say, if it provides value, then we share in that with you, and if it doesn't, then you've lost nothing and you've gained nothing either. So our proposition is completely the opposite to what you're seeing in the crypto space, and we're happy with that.
So what you're offering is, you know what? I'm thinking at the moment that there is a niche, there is a playground, a software playground called EOS. You heard of EOS?
Yep. Sure, certainly have.
And there are a lot of projects suffering over there, suffering like I have no idea. It's just I tried to wake them up, but they just don't seem to want to. But I think that the one reason why they stay there is because they say every transaction's free, so it's easier to build on it.
So they just don't understand, do they? Because you can set whatever fee you like on technology like Komodo. It's if you want to set a zero fee, then you set a zero fee. You just got to run the servers. I mean, if you want to, you can charge whatever you like.
You see, so that's what people don't know. That's the whole reason why they build on it, is because every execution from an application uses some type of fee, a transactional fee, right? When it executes, and they're allowed to, they could do a lot of executions on the platform, allowing them to build a bigger application that doesn't cost a lot, right, in fees, basically. So that could be done.
There's a niche there for sure, and there's also, you've got to take into consideration that some of those big platforms also had some very clever lock-ins in the beginning, where they would offer tokens to projects to come across and call that a development fund of some sort, and those people would have to be locked into staying on that chain for X period of time. But we're seeing it already now with a couple of the big ones that I won't name, but obviously there's murmurs and that's about to come out. Some of these big chains have realised that they're crippled. These big projects are crippled. They can't get off the chain that they're supposed to stay on, and they're forking their own projects. I don't blame them. I mean, someone could come across to Komodo, replicate their own project. It's exactly what we do. We're a replica company, replicating real world. But someone can come across and replicate a lot of those top 10 projects on Komodo and have none of the issues that they've got with scaling, lock-ins, fees, 51% of tax. They could literally come across, mirror, build, assign a separate team, If it doesn't fly, they haven't lost that much. And if it takes off, they can just say, well, I'm skipping across to this. So people just haven't really put those pieces together yet. They don't understand that those options are available to them.
Well, since it's a one-way street on that end, if we reverse the tables, if people wanted to get off of Komodo and move somewhere else, is that possible?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the fact is that
Right?
the platform's completely interoperable. And the thing is, you can say, well, that's dumb. You haven't set it up to lock people in and all the rest of it. You shouldn't need entanglement. If you've got what you believe is the best tech out there and you're providing the best solutions, and people are leaving, then you've got to be able to turn around and assess your business and say, is this something that we want to address and is this something we want to tackle? But you can never be afraid that people are going to leave you and run away. If people want that option or they want to work with multiple technologies, they should have that right to be able to do that. You shouldn't make people stay on your platform through fear and horrible lock-ins that people don't understand. So right. I think the whole idea of Bitcoin and Satoshi's original vision, and that's what JL and the team at Komodo have kept very true, is this should be something that's fair for everybody and everybody should be able to access that. And you imagine if RedFOX had have incorporated what we're trying to do within the current Komodo system, that changes Komodo. It's being what it is. Komodo is all about that open source desktop and fair and equitable for everybody.
It always has been.
And then RedFOX could come along, generate income, and put part of those proceeds back into Komodo to make sure that the development funds are there, that the progress is still happening. And Komodo doesn't have to sell its soul, doesn't have to change the fabric that makes it up. They don't have to change who they are. And then there's a company out there taking a separate risk to make sure that Komodo adoption goes ahead. It's a no-brainer. It really had to happen.
Cool. Yeah. So, from the beginning, it was called SuperNet at some point. That's when I came on. I think that was about 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago now.
Yep. That's right.
I built the Komodo's first website, SuperNet's first website.
All right.
Yeah, so I've been around quite a while.
And I think you got to love how they've been. They've stayed true to their roots.
Yeah, they've always been open source to a fault. They've had people copy them in the past. I think at BlockNet. Maybe I shouldn't be dropping names, right? But that's back in the day there was a lot of beef going on between them. Because they copied all the source code, but you know what? The winner is always the originator, the first one to do it. So I'm very proud of Komodo and how far they've come. I've been a follower for a very long time. I consider this home. This is my home.
It is.
I always come back.
I mate, to be honest, I left the corporate world and I was doing C-level roles in multinationals like Grab, which was the Uber, the company that took over Uber, and Virgin and Ooredoo. And I came across to Komodo and people were saying, "Are you mad? Are you mental? What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to go across and volunteer there." And the reason I'm going to do that is because if I'm going to change into this space, which I think is a game changer, and I've kind of missed out on the .com boom. I should have been more involved, but I wasn't. Then I need to find the project that's got the best tech. That is the least defensive, and when I say least defensive, what I mean by that is the least infatuated with trying to protect what it's got, trying to cover up what it's got, and trying to absolutely screw people out of every last cent that they can get from them. And Komodo was the only one that really ticked all the boxes as far as being aggressive in their development, tackling problems that no one wanted to do. I get up and watch these, I shouldn't drop names, but Zaliqua and projects like that raising 23 million and saying we're gonna solve the scaling problem on Ethereum and introduce something that's closely resembles sharding but isn't quite sharding, and then we're going to raise 21 million and we're going to get it up to, or 23 million, and get it up to 4,800 transactions a second. And you think, Komodo's already at 45,000. This is a problem that doesn't really need solving. Why are people giving $23 million to these people?
Yeah,
makes no sense.
And you'll see a lot of projects touting, "Oh, we did 3,000, we did 4,000 transactions per second," and us that we've been here in Komodo, we're like, "That's nothing, man. Komodo's did that months ago."
I know, and the thing is that people are saying, I'm angry with Komodo. Why don't they go out and sing it from the rooftops and advertise and spend heaps of money on marketing it? And then they're like, okay, but if it's open source and it's desktop, how do you recoup the costs? You're much better off spending that money on development, and it is the right thing to do. And I think even as a person coming into Komodo, it took me a while to get my head around that. Then you've got to say, okay, well, what can we do to build an infrastructure and revenue streams that guarantees Komodo's successful future? And that's why we thought RedFOX took us a good 1 year on the drawing board before we got it right. But that's where we are today.
Yeah. So tell me more about RedFOX. What kind of applications are we? If I was an investor, why would I buy RedFOX?
Okay, that's a very good question as well. Okay, so we're actually going to build companies that are predominantly unicorns in China. They've got Western counterparts that everyone would know, but the Chinese ones have worked out how to scale faster, quicker. They're more agile. They're very lean in their operations, and they've taken massive market share. So, I mean, you probably haven't even heard of a company called YY.com, for example. The closest thing to it in the Western market would be like a Twitch, but it's many multiples larger than Twitch. It's a streaming application, has video games and a marketplace, and tipping for the casters and the influencers that get on there and play the video games with their headsets on, as we've all seen on Twitch and all the rest of it. And they're also into esports. This is massive in this region because of the fact that esports is for the first time going to be a medal sport in 2022. And weirdly enough, gambling's illegal in places like Vietnam for Vietnamese, but you're allowed to wager on the outcome of esports because it's not a game of luck, it's a game of skill. So lots of gateways and doors are opening up. So what we're doing is replicating fast growth, high user types of industries and businesses. And why that makes it an investment for RedFOX is we are building on and using our chain. So we're building essentially like side chains. So these companies would all have the back-end facilitation done through RFOX Coin. And we also now, with the new Antara framework, have the ability to, if we want to spawn a company underneath of us, we have the ability to melt or burn or whatever you want to term it, coins that we have from RedFOX, and to be able to produce new coins for the project that is actually launching. So it means that we'll have a diminishing supply.
Those are through those modules, right? I've seen those.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we can literally, every project that we produce, we can reduce the supply of our own coins and make the usage, because we're building high frequency and high transaction businesses. That just means that the demand and use case for the RFOX coin just goes up and up and up.
Gotcha. And so you're saying the RFOX coin goes up and up and up, and you have these great skills, and you could do some amazing chain development on Komodo.
Yep.
But as an investor, is there a product that I could touch and play with, or is this just like a service that
we've done. No, you can either go per company, or you can go into RedFOX at the top level. So RedFOX acts as sort of like an umbrella, and then all the companies underneath would have large ownership in. But the question makes perfect sense, and the thing is that the things that we'd be building out are much more of the companies using the technology in the background, not necessarily in the foreground. But what we've done is we've brought out an exchange that's a hybrid exchange. By hybrid, what I mean is it will be using the new technology for the DEX that Komodo brings out, obviously. But yeah, it'll be fully supported. There's already STO platform that will be going onto that, as well as also margin trading and fiat gateways.
The InstaDEX, the Barter DEX, the now Atomic DEX, right?
Yeah, but ours will be called ZADEX, which was originally intended to be a Z address exchange. So it will have the ability for privacy coins and everything as well, which is great for coins like Pirate. So this will be, at the moment, we've got a centralized version that we put out for testing and look and feel. And now we're getting very close to the new DEX versions through Komodo coming out that we can integrate and use as white labels for this. So this is pretty pretty nice because they've run around and done a lot of STO licensing and fiat gateway and all the rest of it has been set up in the background.
Just to summarize what you said so far, so RedFOX, the reason why I would have invested it was every project that you bring on elevates you in a monetary way, right?
Yep.
And how many, if the more projects you bring on, the more RedFOX grows. So
yes, absolutely.
There's one side stream right there, and then another
and a diminishing supply in the long term as well of the coin.
Is there some type of burning going on?
Yeah, we haven't announced that yet, so I'm trying to be very coy with my responses. But what it basically is more of a turning of the coins from RedFOX into the coins to the other projects. So the RedFOX coins would potentially diminish in supply.
Oh, that's awesome. Fantastic. That's another good reason. And you're creating technology that has been talked about since the day I stepped foot into SuperNet, decentralized exchanges, which we've heard of. We heard the myth for many years.
Yes.
And it seems to be happening for real now.
It is happening for real.
There's places like Crypto Bridge that say they're DEXs, but they're not really DEXs. A lot of people have been fooled. Is this a real DEX?
Yeah, so the thing is that from a desktop perspective, it would be for sure. You've always got elements that people can question and query in relation to, if I'm using websites, mobile access, and all the rest of it. How do people run a full node on a mobile? And you've even got to the point now where mobile phones and HTC are bringing out full node capacity for running a full Bitcoin, for running the whole blockchain on your phone. Wow. We're progressing in technology and we're getting closer and closer for people to be able to do this type of stuff. And then we've got NSPVs, we've got lots of different tech coming out that would sort of bring us steps and steps closer to it so that no one can ever challenge what these things are. But I think the interesting thing for ZADX was it was supposed to be a hybrid, in the sense that we want people to have the look and feel of a centralized exchange and understand how it works, so it's not complicated. And that was the complaint of the old atomic DEX, AbadaDEX. So people can understand what the centralized exchange looks like. They control their keys. It's a cross-chain, and if they get stuck, obviously they can't get specific account information, but they can ring and get support, and people can walk them through how to basically set things up and how to trade, and there'd be information. And we wanted to give people a really good experience. We wanted to say, just because it's a centralized exchange and you control your own keys and you're taking control of your own privacy and security, shouldn't mean that you're just out in the dust and you're by yourself. So we're trying to blend two models together, which is a little bit interesting. But in further point of your question, that's more of a proof of concept. Now we're doing a proof of technology because we're actually hired Art Legger, and I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a very famous game designer from H1Z1, owned by Sony. He's come across, which is a pretty big step to come across the blockchain, and he's helping us build with the very talented Komodo devs the first proper NFT game. So what it will be is a remake of an 80s or 90s physical collectible game, and then that will be played through a web app, and the people can actually literally walk away with NFTs of varying scarcity and worth as a result of having competed in this particular game. So it's actually it's like CryptoKitties 4.0, because it's not just a collectible. It's we're showing that we can actually integrate gameplay into the NFT realm. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's fantastic. And they'll be able to play it on the phones. And the fact that the phones are also getting stronger and bigger probably also helps, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, and that's just the very beginning. Like I say, the first major scale company we build out would be, I'll say Twitch, but it's Huawei. It's a sort of a Twitch equivalent. We've also got an education app that will be the second company that allows students in Asia to be able to, on demand, take streamed live classes with teachers in America or England and Australia.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, it's massive in
That's what
China.
I want. That's what I
Yeah,
want.
for sure.
I want my son to grow up knowing how to do plumbing, electrical, every single type of, I don't want him to go to the normal school because you don't learn anything in these normal schools. You come out,
Exactly.
you come out a big dodo bird. Like, what do I do now?
Exactly. And the thing is that because we're building a marketplace for our first app, this flows into the second app. And then you've got streaming, which is in the first app, which is also goes into the second. So if you start putting all the dots together, we will actually allow through our marketplace for people to be able to spend time on our services. And for spending time using our services, they can earn RFOX, which can then be used to, for example, imagine the whole concept of being able to say to your parents when they're saying, stop playing video games. And you say, well, I'm playing video games here and I'm earning RFOX. And as a result of me earning RFOX, I can actually pay for English lessons. I can flip that into... I mean,
That's time well spent then. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the possibilities are really quite mind-boggling and endless, but we're building everything very carefully, knowing that whatever we build has to be usable in one of our next projects. So we've got a lot of overlap, transferable users, and we're trying to make sure that we're mindful of not having to necessarily create a brand new coin every time that needs a massive community that needs to go through huge exchange listing fees. We want to try to change the system a little bit and bring blockchain into the real world instead of trying to drag the real world into this crazy crypto world.
Well, you know what? It's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually. You said that, I don't know if people know this, that the best developers I've noticed come from the gaming world.
Sure.
I personally, I was a network administrator for a Fortune 30 company here in New York, and the best developers always came from, and they were always into games too. They always game players, and they developed at the same time. So those are the best guys on the development team. And
absolutely, and to get people like Art Legger, if you do a bit of research on him afterwards, to get people like that to say, look, we trust and know you, and if you reckon that Komodo is the best tech, and then they look into it and say, we think Komodo's absolutely the best tech. I mean, we're starting to slowly we're breaking it down. We've educated for years from the outward user side of things. Now we're saying, instead of us going out there and explaining a very complex, and this is what I did for a year and a half, explain a very complex platform to people. We've got Ethereum and EOS going into the same room, opening up a briefcase and getting out 10 products and saying, which one do you want to buy? Here's what we've got. We were just sort of walking in there and explaining a paper and a thesis and how we think these things can potentially work and change the world, and we can do all of the things that these other guys have got in their products 10 times better. Now RedFOX is starting to build those products that we can actually go in with a kick-ass briefcase and say, this is the best product you'll see.
And people will know that. They'll know that once they see it, or once you do that research, and it really is a deep dive. It'll take a few days to understand every moving part of Komodo.
Absolutely, it's a rabbit hole you never come out of.
Yeah. So it's you. We got Benny Bitcoin from the Bronx. And do you have a team? Can you tell us more about the team? I know you told us about Harschlager, the developer.
Yeah, so we've got a pretty diversified team, and we've got, because of our model of building out companies, the teams that we would use for each of the companies differ in skill set and industry. So we've got about 10 core members now, which range from content and marketing to technical. We get a lot of help from the Komodo side. Obviously, it's a two-way street. And we've got the technical side, we've got the marketing side, we've got operations side, people already in place. That team, we believe even in full swing, would never need to get above 30 people. Now, people are saying, well, how can you run a major, large scale if you're to meet your goals and your expectations? How are you going to run a team with only 30? The thing is, we'd partner with contracted suppliers and contracted partners, so we'll have a big partner network. But the thing is, if we find that we're spending a lot of money on one of those particular partner areas, and it's a huge line item for us and a huge cost, we'd say, well, we're a replica company. Can we replicate that particular function. And as we know, we're put money into it. We'll get our own work for free, and then we can bill out that little section's work to outside companies to generate revenue for us as well. So we've learned from big multinationals.
In my experience, the only thing that can't be replicated is talent.
Exactly. So that's what I've worked for a lot of big multinationals, and I've done turnarounds predominantly. So I've got people earmarked and lined up for roles as long as I can see that I've worked with over the years. So it's a matter of, as we grow, we'll bring those people on. And the talent's there. They've turned around companies. They know exactly what we're trying to do. And we've had the virtue of learning from a lot of these big multinationals that had huge overheads to be leaner and more agile.
Yeah, agile. That's something that's going on in the corporate world for the past couple of years now. Agile training. So let's see here. Well, I was gonna say something. I totally forgot. It's like 2 a.m. What is it? Like 2 a.m. right now?
Yeah, quite late for you guys.
Yeah. So, but hey, listen. Just some simple investor questions.
Yep. Sure.
What is are there any advisors on the team? I know a lot of people like to hear the word advisors, so that's why.
Sure. We've got an advisor who's effectively a chief legal officer as well. He's big. He's done a heap of SEC stuff in the United States. He also is big into crypto and marijuana, the marijuana movement over there at the moment. So two interesting fields. He's got a wealth of experience and works with a lot of the top projects. We've got Brian Koo. Brian Koo is a serial entrepreneur, very famous in Southeast Asia. He's a co-founder of Grab in the Philippines. He co-founded Gojek, which is another billion-dollar company. He co-founded Zalora, another billion-dollar company. These are all unicorns startups. So I had the pleasure of working with him at Grab, and he's sort of our startup guru and our go-to guy. He knows these markets like the back of his hands, which is very, very important when you're a foreigner coming into these markets, to have that sort of type of affiliation and to have that knowledge. We've got John Backus, who's a 25-year plus Wall Street veteran, extremely knowledgeable about what's going on in the traditional investment spaces, and he's going to come in very, very handy, because as we're building real world businesses with blockchain tech at the background, they're the circles that we'll be swimming in a lot. So it's very important we have those connections and ties. We've got a lot of people that we're bringing on to the board of advisors as well now, but we've also got local people that can help us with languages, contracts, company setups, that type of stuff as well. So it's a pretty diverse team, and we're bringing on people that have been there and done it before and understand what they're talking about, and can help us really make significant inroads. So to have people like Brian's status, for example, being a serial billion-dollar unicorn startup guy, is amazing.
That sounds great. So RedFOX, if when I invest in something, I like to see transparency, right?
Sure.
If you guys make revenue, is that transparent somewhere, so we could see how the company is spending their money wisely?
Sure.
In the real world, there's a lot of cover-ups, but in blockchain, everything should be a lot more transparent, I believe.
Yeah, we'll definitely be moving towards. We've always had, since day one, we've always tried to think like, and it's impossible. We've got 20 years of ingrained experience in this, to try and make sure that we are very mindful of going forward and looking at setting this up as a proper company that can potentially go to an IPO or could potentially be publicly listed at some stage. So you have to have all your ducks in a row. You've got to be very transparent and open. So as we build these companies and as we have these revenue streams start to tick in, because it's very early in our development stages, 100% we need to be completely transparent and fully regulated and licensed, which was very important for us.
Okay, and I know earlier you mentioned marketing is kind of a waste, but is there any? That's something people like to know. Is there any portion or budget for marketing?
Oh yeah, us ourselves for sure, but as the top company, we'd do a certain amount of marketing. If you look at other companies around the globe like Catcher Group and Hashed and all of these billion-dollar startup studios and Rocket Internet, a lot of them don't do huge levels of marketing. They do enough to be able to sort of say we're the ones that are behind these projects that we've built, and we're the ones that are behind all of these the build-outs. But ultimately speaking, the projects that we actually build are the ones where the heavy marketing goes into, because they're the ones that we want to get the mass adoption. And by virtue of that, RedFOX itself at the top level grows and grows in popularity and stature as well. So it's a multi-layer.
I always say, it's educating. So it's not. It shouldn't really be called marketing in crypto. It should be called educating, because at the end of the day, that's what people need.
For sure.
So your posters that you put on the walls, let there be a little bit of education on them, please. Nobody wants to just see your logo, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, it'd be good to get to a point where one day all you had to do was put a logo on something and it would speak for itself. But as we know with brands like Nike, there's been famous stories about how the fact that no one understood what that word meant or what it was or what the swish was. And it took them years and years and years of educating their client base and the public as to what they do and who they are. And now you can just put that symbol up anywhere and everybody knows exactly what it stands for, what it means, and what it is.
That's the magic magic number 7, right? You see it 7 times.
Yeah, exactly right.
So your community. Let's get to community. How big is it? I know how big your community is. It's freaking huge. Komodo is huge. But if somebody wanted to get involved in the community, how do they get there?
So for Komodo, Komodo's community is that they're very active in Discord, also very active in Telegram, and also in Twitter. Twitter, I think it has very, very close to 100,000 followers now. Discord's got, it's massive. It's up to about 98,000, I believe. The follower groups in Discord and Telegram. Telegram's got about 6.7 or 6.8 thousand from memory, but it is quite lively and active and broad in its conversations and topics. And Discord is extremely active. People seem to find their little niche and get in there. That's where the technical sort of conversations happen, and most of the technical people go there. Telegram's more sort of general market type of conditions, and Twitter's a combination of updates of both sides, business and also tech. But the supported documents have gotten a lot better over the developer documents over the last year. So most people that want to develop or use the tech go straight to Discord.
Yeah, and I would advise that too. Discord is the most interactive. We're actually using Discord right now to have this.
Exactly.
So, so what can the regular Joe Sixpack investor do to help RedFOX?
For RedFOX, it's more sort of getting the word out, getting knowledge out, but also we're all for talent, because the thing is we're building out in multiple sectors. So we've had some pretty interesting people sort of come to us and say, I'd like to work with you. So we're looking at building a candidate pool of people that could potentially get involved. And the good part about what we do is, because we generate new companies and build new companies, we actually have the ability for people coming in to potentially have a very rare opportunity to be a co-founder of some of these new projects that we build out. So that's pretty exciting to know that you can get in on an equity level in the beginning of a new project's journey. So the most important thing to do would be to come into Telegram or Discord. Discord's just started for RedFOX, and say hi. Tell us what you actually can do and what your skill set is, and just make sure that you keep the conversation open and keep talking to us, because we're always looking for people from very, very different backgrounds to help and get involved. And my other co-founder, Glenn, who's been amazing through this whole process, he also has come from Komodo, so has a very strong background and understanding of Komodo and operations and marketing and stuff like that as well. So we're putting some very serious effort into trying to make sure that we're very welcoming and have very strong cultural values, and that we really try and include the people from the community in helping us.
Okay. I don't know who let the dogs out here, who let the word out, but we got questions coming from crowds now. What kind of investment does Komodo have in RedFOX?
Komodo doesn't have. Well, Komodo's got a technology investment, I guess, is the best answer for that. Komodo's. We've kept the projects very, very separate. So the projects there's been a clear line in the sand, and we've tried to make sure that is the case, because obviously one is a very regulated, I guess some people would accuse it of being a centralised structure versus the existing Komodo structure. So there is a clear line in that sand. They are separate companies, and so therefore we've tried not to cannibalise the market, and we've not tried to take these money and funding. We've tried to appeal to a different market and a different audience. So the investment is more in hours and more in labour and support and help. And obviously JL777 is our lead tech advisor. So
he's awesome.
There's obviously and CA333 is fulfilling the roles of our CTO as well. So there's a lot of crossover.
I love his muscles.
A lot of crossover. For sure. For sure. So there's a lot of.
I wish I looked like that.
There's a lot of crossover. And so the answer to the question, the simple answer is financial investment. That's not what it's about. It's much more about the partnership and the technical investment.
Okay. We got two more questions from the crowd. Would you like to take them?
Yeah, sure. Go for
it. How long will current funding last? ... What's the burn rate?
Yeah, good question. We try and stick to a budget of about $1 million for the project build-outs. That's to go to market point at 100 days, but we have built a perpetual raise model, which means that it's not so bad at the top level, because what we have to do is the projects that we hand over to and the companies we give to people, it's their responsibility to keep bringing in cash and to make sure revenue's coming in to build those companies. So the cash burn rate depends on how many businesses we build out. But ultimately speaking, we should be right for the next 18 months to 2 years, and by then we should have been generating revenue streams.
All right. Whoever asked that question out there, I hope that answers it. What kind of time do you dedicate to RedFOX versus Komodo, since you are GM of Komodo?
Yeah, so a lot of what I was doing for Komodo sort of flowed into RedFOX before there was a RedFOX, because we were talking to corporations about how we could help them, or how we could provide them the products or services they need. So I've always, and this is not a good lesson to follow, but I've always worked 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I still do that now. On the Komodo side, I spend a good 6 to 8 hours a day, and the rest of the time is spent on RedFOX. And as I say, there's a lot of crossover because it's a matter of getting under the hood and understanding the Komodo tech and understanding how to explain it and understanding how to package it. So it's hard to really sort of to separate them out. That the mix does change from day to day, but that's roughly what the split would be.
Okay, very cool. Have you? I might as well just go downstairs and make breakfast, because
yeah.
Have you had experience in running a business before? Yeah, of course he has. He said that like multiple times.
Yeah, so I've been a CEO for 4 different companies, and I've been a C-level for nearly 20 years now. So I've worked for many multinationals, and I've done lots of turnarounds. I generally do contractual roles where I go into a large company, I act as a CEO for a year. I put into place structure, planning, cut costs, work out how to turn around its operations, and then hand over to someone to do it on a more longer term capacity. So it's more of a skills-based turnaround consultant. But yes, I've looked after workforces. The most people I've ever looked after at one time is 7,000.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, so that's relatively big.
I looked after 4 people before.
Actually, I'll tell you the truth. The truth is that it worked for a distributed or decentralized organization with people all over the world, and not really having much face time. Looking after 42 or 4,000 can be equally as challenging.
How does this impact your family? I'm not going to sleep
Well,
tonight.
yeah, that's a very very good question. I think I'm the poster boy of what not to do. I actually have lost a family as a result of it. A wise man once said to me many moons ago, one day if you stare at that computer too long, you look up and everybody's gone from behind the screen. And I must say that I am a victim to that. And I just have this really massive burning desire
Passion.
to build something. I've been working towards this for many many years. RedFOX is the culmination of 20 years worth of ideas and frustration and work. So I'm not going to stop or let anything get in the way of doing that. That sounds callous, but the fact is I've learned my lesson from that. I'm not going to start another family or enter into that until such time as this is done and dusted and I can commit the time needed.
And you know what? It's not just at least you're doing it with a purpose to do something great in the world and to build something amazing, where people actually fall victim to the same the same parallel situation, just playing video games, right? World of Warcraft. I mean, I've seen people lose families just because they play too many video games. It's insane.
I would say obviously if you can find the balance and you can work out how to manage that, then that's what you should be doing. But we're at a really early stage of blockchain development still. There's not a lot of people that are over here in the blockchain space that are really good business people who have had experience in the commercial world. So putting those two together is kind of a unique opportunity. And I think Komodo, as I say, is a lot more advanced than a lot of the other platforms. So we've got a real unique opportunity. We've chosen to be in Vietnam and moved over here. It's a big undertaking to move a team of people over to Vietnam.
Vietnam? You said that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the fastest growing region in the Southeast Asian market, and it's got huge potential. It has 100,000 engineers through university every year, so there's lots of tech talent. It got rated number 3 in the world for new tech talent. So we came here for a specific reason. We're dedicated. We've got a job to do. We've all committed to the 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're going to keep doing that until such time as we have the foundation laid.
And you know what? I do the same thing, just in a different way. I'm, like what when I'm dedicated to something, you could ask how. So I'm doing it. They see what I do with the radio. I that's what I do. This is it. Yeah, what I do. Right. When I dedicate myself to, and I have probably 4 or 5 more projects I work on other than the radio, but that's dedication, that's passion. And my wife firsthand, has witnessed how I was able to get out of the rat race, right? And do this instead and do better doing this than I did working every day, hating my job at some point because it was just a daily redundancy, right? See Cisco routers, exchanges, every server in the server room, right? The voice servers, I mean, all sorts of different servers I messed with, and at the end of the day, it was fun, but then it became redundant, right? Once you don't things anymore, you're not learning anymore, you're not growing. It just ends up becoming a vicious cycle of life where you're not growing anymore. So what are you doing? You're just making money.
I understand completely.
To keep living, right?
And I think that for me, 20 years of working and working for other people and helping turn around companies and all the rest of it, this was the first thing that I found that I thought to myself, I'm passionate enough to go all in on. And there's a great quote that says, I did a study in the US actually, where you're from, saying that it's a guaranteed proven fact that the people that think because they're coming home at 6 o'clock at night and spending time with their kids and all the rest of it are doing the right thing, but they've proven that the child's life is much better. You're better off to spend an hour a day with the child and be happy than and love what you're doing and give them quality time than to come home from work at 6 o'clock at night and be miserable and disjointed and
learn and if you learn something new every day, you actually have passed down to that child.
Exactly.
My father was a bread maker. He was a baker, right? I mean, I
Right.
know how to bake. I know how to make bread. I know how to make cookies. I know how to make everything. I'm not a baker though, but that was the
Yes.
only thing he knew to teach me, and that's all he did his whole life.
Yep.
So
Yeah. It's
I want
it's it's
I want to be able to
admirable.
teach my kid coding. I want to be able to teach him how to build sites, how to run his own radio show, how to fix a car, how to do sheetrocking in a house, how to fix, how to fix liners in pools, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's
there's
important.
there's a lot of things that need to be learned in the world, and I don't think our children are getting it from going to school every day. Learning knowledge that is not applied knowledge. We want applied
Ah,
knowledge,
for sure.
but
For
I don't
sure.
want. I'm getting on a tangent. You can see I'm very passionate. I got into crypto because I hate the system. I'm
Oh,
into
mate, we all do.
Komodo
We all do.
and Pirate because I don't like the system.
So,
Um,
so, so let me tell you something that will actually resonate with you a lot. I hated the system as well, and I had to keep fixing the messes that the companies that I go into. So, what I thought was, I'm going to go across to the blockchain world, look at this technology, have a look at how they're trying to change the way things are done, and then I'm going to take the knowledge of that, bring it back into the commercial world, and disrupt the hell out of these legacy systems and models. And that's the way to go. The thing is, at the moment, we're in a kiddie pool, and next to us is a big boy pool. And in the big boy pool, you've got all your IBMs and your Oracles and all your big companies. And then in the kiddie pool, you've got all these crypto projects, and we're splashing around, and they're looking at us, and they're keeping an eye on us. But they're not ever going to come out of that pool and come across and swim at the rate we're going. What we've got to do is understand that we've got to actually get out of our pool and go across and take these offerings across to them and show them what we've actually got. Don't wait for them. Don't think that by just splashing around in the pool, they're all going to come across, because that's not going to happen.
I have a similar situation. I got out of. I'll tell you the company I worked for, Amerisource Bergen. It's a Fortune 30 company here. And the last line right before I gave them notice saying, don't even bother giving me a raise. I worded it nicely, and I was like, listen, I'm out of here, right? They had redundancy on everything. They had redundancy on their voice servers. They had redundancy on everything. Every server was redundant, right? The virtual servers, if one went down, the other one was there, right? Except their SAN. Their SAN had no redundancy. So
Right.
for 2 months before that, I was saying, listen, if something happens to that SAN, all the virtual servers, they're gonna go down and you're gonna be fucked, right?
Yep.
I was telling them, I was saying, even if you get a freaking $100 hard drive from the store, I will copy all the virtual, the virtual servers onto it just in case something happens. Guess what happened? IBM guy came. They called for like some normal maintenance, right? IBM guy came. He pulls the plug from the from the SAN, and all the servers got corrupt. Dude, we were there for 3 days rebuilding every single server, voice servers, Exchange servers, their POS servers. And at
It's
that,
so true.
dude, at that point, I was like, listen, and you know what? The next day, I found the hard drives on my desk.
Yeah,
I was asking them for 2 months, and the very next day, they were right on my desk.
but you think people would learn from from issues like that? And for example, friends have built Facebook, right? They built businesses on the Facebook platform, and then Facebook just suddenly would say, okay, you've got 11 million. This guy's got 11.5 million followers. You've got 11.5 million followers. We're now going to start charging you every time you want to communicate to them. And so their business is absolutely crippled. They've been built on this centralized structure where the rules can change underneath of them at any given time, and they don't have the freedom of knowing that they own their own business. They actually are. They went with Facebook because of the network effect, exactly like people would go on Ethereum, for example. And what they haven't learned, and we didn't learn from these replications, is that people are repeating that in the blockchain space, and it's going to end in tears for a lot of people when these platforms can't scale, or they change the rules on people, and everybody's at the mercy of those rule changes. The only way you can really truly avoid this is to build your own sovereign chain on something like Komodo, where you've actually got the ability to have your own standalone chain. And that's the only way that we're ever going to really get away from being at the mercy of someone else telling us how our business has to be structured. We are. It's terrible.
We're seeing it now. I created an account called Bitcoin ICO because I own BitcoinICO.com, right? And just another one of my million projects I do.
All right.
They totally killed it. They killed the account just because the word Bitcoin was in it.
Yeah, it's out of control, and the thing is that I think people understand it as well, and I think people know it. I think a lot of people went into building on Ethereum because they knew they were going to get the exposure, and they thought, if it takes off, we'll deal with it later. But it's very hard to deal with it later when you build a whole company on a platform. But the thing is that people say, I understand there's the option of having my own chain through something like Komodo, but then I'm kind of like, I'm on my own. I've got to go out and build this business from scratch, and I've got to do that. And the type of people that we're attracting at this particular point in time don't necessarily know how to build that business from scratch. So they're saying we've got some good technical ideas, or we're technically gifted. We know how to put something together, but we don't know how to package it, market. We don't know who to go to sell it to. We don't know anything about business structure, cap tables, models, drag-alongs. We don't know anything about any of the real world stuff. So we need the support of an Ethereum or a bigger platform. So I think we're going to very quickly see people start to understand as it becomes easier.
There's already platforms out there. I don't know if you heard of Atmos.
Yep, I have.
It's on EOS.
Yep.
I think that's the biggest problem with it, personally. Problem with EOS is that it's not friendly. You got to pay for a wallet. Try setting up one, right? Oh my God, it's just too much for a normal person to understand.
It shouldn't be that hard. And Satoshi's vision was very clear, and JL and the team from Komodo's vision is very clear as well. And the thing is, you might say, well, how are they going to adopt all this great technology? And that's why people like RedFOX, and I hope there's 100 RedFOXes that come along for all the different chains. But ultimately speaking, we've got to put these into packages that the everyday end user doesn't need to necessarily learn what a cryptocurrency is, how to get a wallet, how to get onto an exchange and make a swap or do a trade. Ultimately speaking, if a kid wants to go down to the local ice cream store and buy a scoop of chocolate ice cream, why should he have to learn how to do a whole lot of stuff to be able to do that? You've got to provide better, cheaper, faster, stronger products to the products that are already on the market for someone to replace that. No one is going to go to the bother and the length and the hassle of having to learn all they have to learn to use these products that are nowhere near as good as the products that are currently on the market.
One-click solutions. That's it. That's what it has to be, as simple as a one-click, like Amazon. One-click solution.
Exactly. And I think Komodo's headed in the right direction. So we're really happy to be involved, and we're really happy to be part of this, and we wouldn't be anywhere else.
I'm having a great time talking to you, Ben. But we have some more questions from people.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure. Sure.
But I would love to keep talking to you personally. But let's get to
we can do that another time. Yeah, sure.
What are some examples of blockchain projects that interest you? RedFOX.
Yeah, some of the blockchain projects that interest me. To be honest, I keep a close eye on stuff like Chainlink, which is trying to decentralize the Oracle systems, and I look at how Komodo's tech could potentially go straight past that. But I do very much look at these disruptive types of blockchain projects. I look at stuff like Quant, QNT. Any of these projects that are trying to do ambitious stuff to disrupt legacy models, I think is fantastic. But again, I reckon they're sort of mid-stage projects, because the way that RedFOX sees it is you should bypass all of that and not try and make people come across and learn. It should be we take it across and replace what they're already using with something that's better and blockchain based and backed. But I do keep a very close eye on these real projects with real potential to disrupt legacy models in the commercial world.
Awesome. Okay, and is RedFOX filling a niche that is currently needed, or is it more future oriented?
I think it's both, actually. I think it is definitely future oriented. We've had several people tell us that we're 2 years ahead of the curve and a bit early to the party. And we've also had several people tell us the party will never start unless a project like ours exists. So we're not at all too early. And people with a lot more money than us will come along and replicate what we're doing straight away. So I think we're meeting a need at the moment, which is providing blockchain services to people that don't need to learn how to use cryptocurrency. So that's now. And future forward, we're paving the pathway for businesses to be built from the ground up on blockchain and not being scared and trying to implement it bit by bit as they go down the track.
Okay. What are your personal goals for the next 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years?
Next 1 year would be to have a couple of successful projects up and built, and to build a culture and a legacy that outlives any of us as individuals, because it's not about us as individuals, it's about the company, the movement, and being able to make sure this blockchain technology from Komodo gets adopted. 5 years, I would hope that, to be 100% honest, I would hope that I'd be eyeing off an exit and looking at sitting on a board, an advisory board. I can't keep working 27 for the next any prolonged period of time. In 10 years, coffee shop on the beach, and still being actively involved in a movement that I can proudly say I was a part of.
Yes, I want a cafe also.
Generations.
That's
yeah. Yep.
Chill at a cafe.
Yep. I don't want to have to sell a coffee to keep it open. I want to do it because I love it.
Yeah, I just want to sit there and drink coffee as other people.
Me too.
Let's see. Mention about it. Does RedFOX have any ideas on how to approach the general public? Not already. Does RedFOX have any ideas on how to approach the general public not already involved in crypto?
Yep.
I think we covered that. Right?
Yeah, take them a product or service that they are familiar with that works better than the one they've got.
Okay. We think we covered this one too, so I'm not even going to ask. What's the... Did I ask you already what's the end game for RedFOX?
The end game for RedFOX is to be honest, we haven't covered really. The end game is to build these companies, but to build the Red Hat enterprise model for Komodo. So, for example, an audited, supported, subscription-based version of Komodo's products and offerings, and have certified representatives in each country going around and helping companies or businesses integrate and install and set up enterprise-level blockchain services into their business. I think we're a little bit early for that, but the infrastructure itself and the certification processes and getting this set up will take a good six to 18 months, I think closer to 18. So we need to sort of start building that fairly soon. And I think in the next 5 years, those types of companies that will be absolutely massive.
Whew, man, I don't know how you do it, man. I already drank 3 gallons. I need more water. You got a sexy voice, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
You probably pick up a lot of chicks.
No, I'm working too much, mate. We don't leave this apartment.
You got to bring them to the office.
No. The office is the back cave. We live in the office as well. It's a big building.
Okay, brother. I'm gonna pass out. Let's go. If I don't cut now, but I'm more than happy to interview you again another time.
Sure, mate. I'd just like to say thank you very, very much for not only having us on the show and helping to tell our story, but the fact that you provide this service that tries to educate people on something that you're very passionate about. I think there should be more shows like this and less about what coin can I make $1 million out of today to sell and flog its crap to everybody. So I think it's very noble what you're doing, and keep plugging away, because these are the channels that will win out in the long run.
And you know how I think of it? If I drop dead tomorrow, at least my son will be able to hear me on over 250 shows, right?
So absolutely, mate. And you've stuck at it with more than a lot of these projects and initiatives in the space have done. Most of them give up at the first sign of any hard work. So well done.
I've seen radio stations come and go, bro. So many of them.
For sure.
There is no competition.
And thank you for staying up until the wee hours of the to have this conversation. I really appreciate it.
All right, brother. Thank you. I love you, man. Thank you for coming on. I chose you because I knew I had a good feeling. Every project in the Komodo realm is amazing, and I hope to get each one of them one by one. And I know a lot of the people are kind of commingle with other projects. They're kind of the same people, so it makes it a little difficult.
I see a lot of these things morphing together, and with what RedFOX is going to do, there's huge potential for us to actually sign up other companies as our partners, within the ecosystem, rather than going out and looking at conventional real worlds. I see that all coming together for sure.
Cool. So normally, how I close this is there any information that you could where people could reach you? What's your website, email address?
Yep. So redfoxlabs.io is the website, and the email addresses are the same, but you just put the name in front. So Benny at RedFOX Labs is the email address.
Okay, and we got the website, we got that. Sorry, it's a little late for me. I'm starting to think twisted. And that's about it. I think we covered it all, man. We got your contacts. If anybody wants to find him, he is definitely on the Komodo Discord as well.
Yep. Right. I'm under Bitcoin Benny. Most people know who I am, so it's pretty easy to find me. I'm findable everywhere.
Bitcoin Benny from the Bronx. How do you know that? How do you not know who that is?
I know Jenny from the block.
Okay, well, I'm not even going to touch that one.
well, thanks again for having us. Really, really appreciate it. Love to do it again sometime soon.
All right, thank you, and I love you, and everybody out there. Thank you for joining us. I really didn't imagine anyone was going to be listening at this time, but apparently people are awake. So thank you for joining us, and I love you all. This is Lutz signing out.
This has been Crypto Core Radio. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell your friends so they can be among the first to learn about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency advancement in the new digital economy.